So just in time for Halloween too, if I can edit it and get it out in time. That is.
All right then. All right.
We got a few days. But we got a coroner. Man, I've been wanting to get somebody like you on here for a while. Had the mortician on here, and then I was like, I
saw that one.
I should change the name of it to the macabre. The macabre. That's probably already taken. Something like the stories of the macabre. Macabre. Yeah.
That'd be good.
So what do you got another job too. You got another full-time gig, and I don't know how you do it. Kids.
Well, if you include dad, 3 full-time jobs.
Yeah, you manage a lot. So how does one become a coroner?
In the state of Indiana, the coroner is an elected position. So it's a popularity contest. Is what it really is. No. So, Andrew, my background is I did my undergraduate, did my master's at Purdue University, and my research was based in forensic entomology. For those of the people who don't know, that's maggots, for lack of a better term. I studied maggots, and the whole, how do you say this? The whole idea behind it, if you will, is that since maggots cannot regulate their temperature, they rely on heat to grow. And so you can effectively use temperature data on maggots on a corpse or a dead animal or whatever, and you can estimate a post-mortem interval. So some of the big blowfly species here in Indiana are the black blowfly, the blue bottlefly, the green bottlefly, and those have very predictable growth rates, and they've been studied for decades. And the base temperature, a lot of times these research is done at 72 degrees Fahrenheit. And so you can calculate that, and basically you nerd out. And when I was in grad school, my research was on how gunshot trauma affects decomposition. And so I used Purdue, being one of the largest ag schools, had a lot of dead pigs.
Okay.
Pigs are the closest human analog for decomposition research. Their organs are kind of arranged similarly, don't have a lot of hair. What they do have is kind of coarse hair, and so they can be used as an effective analog for
a substitute.
Yeah.
For cadavers.
So I used 4 different calibers. I used a 12 gauge, a 40, a 9, and a 22. And so the pigs were dead. I want to preface that. They were dead. And so basically what we did, we would freeze. We had an entire room full of deep freezes full of dead pigs. And before we would use them, we would defrost them, basically thaw them out in this big room. And then we'd put them out in a huge fenced-in, basically walled-in research area. And then we would just basically watch them decompose. I would go out there twice a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon. We had a weather station out there that recorded temperature data. And then as I would mark down when we saw flies, when we saw eggs, when we saw first, second, and third instar. So maggots go through 3 growth stages, first, second, and third instar. And we would notate all that. And then also I would collect the maggots as well. And then I would go back to my office and turn on some reruns of basic cable, have that in the background, and we would, myself and the other students in there, we would basically identify maggots. Okay. And then we would calculate that, enter all that data into a spreadsheet that basically worked backwards. So once we reach the third instar of maggot, we would then start working backwards. And it's called base 6 or base 10 as far as how you subtract all this, and go way off in the weeds. I can completely nerd out kind of on the data and that, and you basically work backwards until you get to where the first instar is, and then even to the egg laying point, and then that would give you your post-mortem interval. So you can apply that then to humans. In, let's say, if someone's murdered and then disposed of in a cornfield. So in the state of Indiana, we have those 3 big players that I talked about earlier as far as the blowflies, and go out and basically if that body had entomological evidence on it, maggots, then we could collect those maggots age them, and then work backwards and get a post-mortem interval where that body was placed there. Now, if that body had been sitting in a freezer for 5 years prior to that, I wouldn't be able to tell that. I'd be able to tell you how long that body was placed where it was located.
So if they were killed by Richard Kuklinski, the Iceman, I think he used to intentionally, he would do that to throw off the... Interesting, man. I was going to ask you, that was one of the questions I was going to ask you, was your educational background, because I knew you had talked about it. You had told me about it before, but I didn't know the specifics of, and that does tie in very neatly to what you do as a coroner. So, which you're not just doing homicides, though. You're getting called for anybody
anything, yes.
So go ahead.
How it works, I operate under Indiana Code 36-2-14, is the code for the coroner's office. And being an elected official, I have the duty to investigate all deaths that occur in in Bartholomew County. And I investigate all 5 manners of death: homicide, suicide, natural, accidental, and undetermined. And they can be anywhere from a motor vehicle accident, someone that dies by accident on the interstate. It can be an opioid overdose. It can be an accidental death, or it can be a natural death in the hospital, or it can be someone who just passes away at home and they're not under the care of a physician. So that's pretty much kind of the range in which I investigate. And then there's also laws that mandate I have to be involved so many hours past surgery, so many hours that they've been admitted to the emergency department, so many hours they've been admitted to the critical care unit.
If they're still alive?
No. If they pass away in the ER.
Oh, okay.
They're mandated to call my office. And also in the ICU. If they're in the ICU within a certain period of time, then they have to call my office and notify my office or one of my deputy coroners.
Yeah, because you have people that, you're not on call every night. That would just be...
No. Well, I am technically on call every night. So we do 12-hour shifts. We do 12A to 12P and then 12P to 12A. We kind of sometimes we'll break it up depending on which of my deputies is available. So I'm on call. It's like this is my weekend off. Mm-hmm. So I was on call midnight Friday, and I'll be on call until noon tomorrow. So I deal with all the cases in that time frame.
So even when your deputy coroner goes out, do they tell you, hey, this is what we got going on? Or
a lot of times they'll give me a heads up. They'll be like, hey, this is what's going on. This is what we have. How it's set up is we get a page from our dispatch. Mm-hmm. Dispatch sends a page to my phone, and it kind of gives me some information like, hey, possible 10-0, which is law enforcement code for a dead body at this address. Here's what they have. Walked in, found 95-year-old grandma cold at the touch.
Gotcha.
So then law enforcement responds. They call me. We go from there.
I don't know if you were just talking about it when you were getting into the maggots and all that, the etymology. What's the...
Entomology.
Etymology.
Now, see, that's funny. Etymology is like the study of words.
Yeah, I was completely off. Well, anyways, so, the body farm. Mm-hmm. You talk about that?
The Forensic Anthropological Research Center at the University of Tennessee. I have been going down there for quite some time, almost 20 years, and I have taught courses down there. I help teach the entomology section for police departments from all over the world. Teach them how to basically gather, collect evidence, whether it is the larvae, the maggots themselves, or if it's the pupaриal casings, which is, think of it as when a butterfly comes out of its cocoon. Same thing with a maggot turning into a fly. They're little pupaриal casings. We can recover those and at least get possibly down to genus, maybe not species, as far as their identification. And then also how to collect and trap adult flies for research purposes. If you have a prominent homicide, or if you just have your homeless guy that dies out in the woods and has been out there for a couple weeks, and you have to go out there and you want to figure out how long they've been there. You want to figure out exactly possibly where they came from, which is something else that there are certain species of flies down in Knoxville that we don't have up here, like the black soldier fly. We actually do have them up here now, but years ago when I first started going down there, it was unheard of to find a black soldier fly
So they've migrated up here?
Yeah. So
how does that happen? When weather storm or weather channels and...
Oh, some people would say it's climate change.
Oh.
So they're much higher. That's a whole nother topic we don't have time for today, I don't think.
No. So. But do they... So the farm itself, I mean, are they sticking these cadavers that have been donated?
Yes. So if you go to their website, you can go to University of Tennessee's anthropological website, and it has a direct link into body donation. So it's only donated bodies. So, and they don't take like unclaimed bodies or anything like that. So,
well, if you have a loved one and you don't know what to do with them, guys, you can claim it on your taxes.
I don't think it's a tax write-off. So
well, there we go.
It is. I will definitely say it's a world-renowned and world-class facility, and the ladies who run it down there are awesome. So it's been a good experience for me. I've been going down there, I mean, for almost 20 years. I went in my undergraduate with my then professor at Purdue, Dr. Ralph Williams, and then kind of took over his teaching spot down there when he retired. So I also do it with Dr. Bagayski. She is a tenured professor up at Valparaiso. She teaches in their biology department. So,
do you do any stuff with pathologists?
So when I have a death and I decide to do an autopsy, there are some cases where I'm mandated by law to do an autopsy, such as infants. I have to have board-certified forensic pathologists come in and do a post or an autopsy. Then there's other ones you get off in the weeds, suicides, and if they didn't leave a note, and a lot of it's up in the air. Some offices will do it. Some offices, or my office, we use best practices, and so we will autopsy all overdoses. And that's in part working with the prosecutor's office for a fairly new code that has come out called Dealing Resulting in Death. Mm-hmm. And so in conjunction with law enforcement and the prosecutor's office, if we can figure out who dealt the decedent their fatal dose, then they can be charged with a level 1 felony. So the amount of autopsies my office conducts has absolutely, I mean, it's just probably gone up tenfold since I started.
From overdoses?
From overdoses and just autopsies in general that we do.
Okay.
So
yeah, I was gonna say,
we do quite a few. I think we're right around 50 to 52 autopsies this year. And so all that comes out of my budget. And the pathologist that I use, she is out of Fishers, Indiana. And I call her my traveling knife. So one day I sarcastically say one day she's north of 40 and the next day she's south of 40. And so I'm never more than probably 24 to 36 hours out from an autopsy. So it doesn't slow down people's ability to get their loved ones into the care of a funeral home.
Yeah.
So
how long does an autopsy take?
It depends. If we have, I don't want to say a basic autopsy because that makes it sound like there can be such thing as a basic autopsy, but the company we use, Saguaro Forensics, they're absolutely phenomenal. The autopsy technician, he is literally an artist with a scalpel, and he's probably done close to 10,000 autopsies. I'm just taking a stab in the dark. So
yeah, it sounds like the urologist that did my vasectomy told me the same number. He's pretty quick.
Pretty good.
A little bit more involved than a little more involved than an autopsy, though.
So, yeah. Now, a full forensic post, like a homicide, that might take up to 2 to 3 hours because you have a lot more in-depth things. If you're just doing one to rule something out, like a heart attack, in about 45 minutes. Because
you're only examining one specific
certain
area.
Portions. They're checking for like hypertensive, arteriosclerotic cardiovascular disease, all different sorts of things that they're looking for. Also, we get medical records. We work with our hospital hand in hand with them to get medical records in a quick fashion. Then we pass that off to our pathologist. He or she will review the medical records and then get a determination. We're usually waiting on toxicology. Toxicology's they've got it back down to about 3 to 4 weeks now. So during the whole COVID era, we're up to anywhere between 6 and 8 weeks waiting on toxicology. So that was another part of the pandemic that was kind of a pain for us.
Yeah, what's the is it vitreous fluid where they draw it out?
Vitreous.
Yeah,
eyeball jelly. Yep.
Is that I've heard, I don't think it was you, somebody may have told me, it might have been you. That's the most accurate way to determine someone's like blood alcohol content or determine what's in their system.
It's one of the ways. We usually use cardiac blood, heart blood.
Okay.
It's much easier to get cardiac blood than it is to get you have to have at least 5 milliliters to be tested for the entire panel that my office selects. And so sometimes if you can't draw 5 milliliters of vitreous, then you can always rely on blood. So we also do urine. For autopsies, we collect all 3.
Damn.
But fortunately, going back to overdoses, if we can articulate, myself or one of my deputies can articulate that it is probably or possibly an overdose, the state of Indiana, through federal funding, has grants that will pay for the toxicology. So that takes a huge burden off my office and my budget as far as overdoses.
Yeah, so you can delegate. Y'all gonna pay for this one? Oh, this is a good question.
Send it.
This is on the. This was a question asked by the great Theo Vaughn to his coroner guest.
Oh boy,
will your pets eat you? Have you seen that?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I tell people.
Yep.
My dog loves me.
Your cat lovers are gonna be the first one to get you first.
The cat?
Cat will get you
really?
first. Yep.
Any specific area? Like, it doesn't matter.
Soft tissue.
Soft tissue. Yeah, I tell people, I'm like,
it's the same way with maggots. So baby maggots, the first instar maggots, they don't have, we'll call them feeding claws, if you will. But they basically take that and they'll scrape it across your skin and they'll dissolve it and they'll start consuming, basically just slurp up your tissue goo. And so first instar maggots don't have very strong teeth, if you will. Mm-hmm. And so they'll start in the soft, the mucosal membranes, eyes, ears, nose, mouth.
It's a good place. So that's probably what I would do.
That's why a lot of times you will see a face skeletonized when maggots are involved.
Yeah, they work quick too, man.
Yes, they do. Yep, especially in a warm environment. Somebody dies at home in an apartment with the AC turned off. Oh.
Yeah, I was talking to a detective. I can't remember who it was. He said that it seems like they never have the air conditioning on, or it doesn't work.
You're right.
It's in July. Mm-hmm. It's 84 degrees in the house.
Yeah. I've always been asked, like, how do you deal with the smell? It's funny because
I was going to ask you that, man. The sights and the smells. How do you, I guess once you've been exposed to it for as long as you have, it's like, okay, but is there still that initial shock factor? We're like, oof.
Yeah, there's that initial shock factor. The funny thing is, when I was little, I couldn't even drive past like a dairy farm without gagging. Like the smell of cow manure or chicken manure would make me like gag. Or like even the smell of dog food when I was little would make me gag. And now I do this. So,
are you used to? I mean, are you? Go ahead. Your mom.
My mom's astounded by it. She's like, "You used to gag at the smell of dog food. I don't understand how now you do what you do. You don't really ever get over it. You just find ways to cope with it and breathe through your mouth. And if you find yourself getting ready to gag, I force myself to smile like a real cheesy one of these smiles. It actually will suppress your gag reflex. I've found that it does.
Oh, so you're about to vomit and you're like,
you force yourself to smile real big. Yep. It'll suppress your gag reflex. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard people with the Vicks vapor rub.
No, see, that actually, if you think about it, you put Vicks on your chest, it actually opens your sinuses up.
So you're making it worse.
Yeah, I think you're making it worse, in my opinion. So then you get the combination of decomp and menthol.
God, dude. Oh my! So this is my favorite thing I want to ask you. Right. I've watched too many zombie movies as a kid. Have you ever been in the presence of or been involved in an exhumation?
Yes. Yes. My office just recently identified a 25-year-old cold case. This individual died in 1999 by a self-inflicted gunshot wound. And he was found along State Road 46 in 1999. It was a day shift call. They responded out there. Guy had no information on him, had no identification whatsoever.
Just sitting in his car? He had been shot?
Nope, on the side of the road. on the side of State Road 46.
Oh, okay.
So, no identification on him whatsoever. And he was wearing like some very, I guess you could say, stereotypical clothing of someone you would think of mafia. And I was like, like this is a mob hit.
Yeah.
And so my office manager, he's a lot older than I am. And so he was in law enforcement when this occurred. And so he always had kind of that was always in the back of his head. And I think before he retired, it was kind of the last thing he wanted to do. It was to find out who this guy was. And so we got with a company out of Texas called Othram. And they do genetic genealogy testing. And so we worked with one of our local funeral homes here in town. And it was actually the same funeral home that prepared him. And so what happens for those of people who don't know, when you have a John Doe or a Jane Doe, basically you have to recruit a willing funeral home that will basically prepare him for burial. And then our local cemetery here in town has basically a paupers section where they are then buried at the cost of, I can't call if it comes out of the trustees' budget or if it comes out of my budget to bury that person.
Probably comes out of yours.
Probably. Yeah. And so they buried him, and then we had to do an exhumation. So it has to be, you have to basically write an affidavit, and then it has to be signed off by a judge.
Yeah, I was reading that it has. I mean, it's not taken lightly.
No, it takes.
It's a big deal.
Yes, it is. And so we had him exhumed. I think it was August 25th of 21, maybe.
Oh shoot,
22. And had him exhumed, and then.
So he was gone. So he was found in 1999.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
He was dug up 22 years later.
Yep.
How did he look?
He was inside the vault. So inside the vault, it's a concrete vault.
Right.
There was actually insects in there. They'd gotten down that deep and gotten down in there, and we're basically in, for lack of a better term,
having a picnic.
Yeah. And the saponification is what it's called. It's when basically it's kind of like the base word that is soap. So soap makes I call it human guacamole.
They call it grave wax.
Yeah, grave wax. Yes.
Yeah.
I call it human guacamole.
So meaning that he wasn't a skeleton.
He was pretty much skeletonized. Yeah, there was some hard tissue left, like tendons and stuff like that, but he was pretty much decomposed. So
yeah. So
but since all the moisture was trapped in there, it really could never dry out.
Well, like Derek, I was telling her or asking her about, like, you know, people genuinely believe, and I don't know why they would want to in the first place. They bury a loved one and they're like, man, I'm going to get him the best vault and the best. And it's like, listen, in Arizona or some like dry,
right?
You know, like they dig these mummies up. Now they're going into these like tombs, but mummification is a totally different process. Anyway.
Totally different. Oh yeah.
But the temperature is arid.
Yeah.
But in Indiana, you know,
we get pretty humid here.
We get wet.
Yeah. Yeah. Swampy. We get real swampy.
So, you know, Uncle Rob's down there, you know, doing backstrokes.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah.
For a while.
Yeah.
Probably not a while, but I mean that speeds up decomp so fast, right?
Yeah. Well, you'll have, the embalming fluids and whatnot. That'll slow it down for a couple of years, but no matter what, time wins out.
How was his casket? What was the condition of his casket?
He wasn't in a casket. It was basically a cardboard casket.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The paupers. Yeah. So like a pine box almost.
Cardboard.
Damn.
Heavy cardboard.
Was it wax?
There wasn't much left. The body bag was there. The plastic body bag was still intact.
God. Well, see, that was back in 99 when like a Coke bottle from the 90s was indestructible.
Right.
And now, these are pretty... These ain't bad.
No, not bad. Yeah, for plastic.
Pretty decent.
But so we got him identified. Long story short.
How did you do that without saliva? I've heard of people doing like saliva, but
so we did this genetic genealogical testing, and we found a possible match out of Ohio.
Bone marrow, or what?
I would have to do a little more research as far as how we did that.
But you found out who he was.
Found out, yes, we identified him. So
Damn.
And then once that's all done, we will take his remains and do as the family wishes.
Just rebury him. So what did you make contact? Did they make contact with family?
Yep, make contact with the family. They're like, "Oh, that's Uncle so and so. We thought he left and moved to Florida." So that's why they never asked questions. Never filed a missing persons report.
Because they just thought he was like, I'm moving away.
Yep.
Okay. And if you can't talk about this, let me know. What are the worst way in your time as a coroner? What's the worst way you think you've seen someone go that you guys thought they died? How you thought they died?
Like, what do I think the worst way to go is?
Well, I mean, I guess you could answer it that way. What's the worst way you've seen, or that you would say that's the worst way in a case?
People lighting themselves on fire.
What?
Mm-hmm.
People would do that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've had several cases over the years where people do that.
Suicide or just don't know? God.
Yep. So, had some guy, his ex-wife said, "I'm taking you for all you're worth, and I'm going to take your classic muscle car." And he pretty much said, "No, you're not," and set himself in the garage on fire.
Damn.
In his muscle car.
Well, at least she didn't get it.
Nope.
Well, that's no. Dang, dude, that's I didn't know. I mean,
those are my absolute least favorite.
I've heard of monks doing it as like a testament to their,
no thanks.
So, how long do you have left?
I have until January 31st. Sorry, December 31st, January 1, first of the year.
And then you're done.
Got elected. I'll be deputy for the new coroner, which is Thomas Barrett. He is one of my deputies right now. So he agreed to ran unopposed. So he got a really easy campaign year. Didn't have to do much of anything. Went to a couple fish fries and went to a couple dinners. And he will do a phenomenal job. I'm going to stay on with him. I'm going to continue working as a contract deputy. So I'm the only one on the county payroll as the elected coroner. And then all of the deputies are contracted. So basically we get paid by the case. I pay my deputies by the case.
So the more people die, better Christmas is. I know you don't look at it
for some people. For some people. So it is. We are very busy that time of year, actually.
Oh, holidays?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that?
Just for some reason, it seems like our suicides generally go up during the holidays. Also, they say seasonal affective disorder. SAD, they call it. Kind of when the days get shorter.
Oh, yeah.
Less sunlight, less vitamin D, they say. People.
Especially here in the Midwest.
Also, you realize you have no family coming around for...
Well, see, I don't want any family coming around. Dude, I'll tell you what, man. I was a kid. I love Christmas. And that's like...
But now you have your own traditions with your family, you know?
Yeah. I'm just lazy, dude. I don't want to do anything. Like, I got to put the tree up.
All right, question. Live or fake tree?
You know, now the older I get, the snootier I get. Mm-hmm. Now that I'm financially stable, most days anyway, I think I do a live tree.
Yeah.
And you know, like National Lampoons.
Right.
Man, I love
Christmas
that movie.
Vacation.
Yeah, I love that movie as a kid. And I was just like, you know, that's who I feel like. I feel like him.
Clark?
Yeah, Clark.
Yeah.
You know, but it's just like, God.
So do you have a cousin Eddie in your family?
Nah, not that I'm aware of. I have never spoke to him. Maybe over there in Turkey. Nickname's Eddie. It's probably like Edmeth or, I don't know, some weird Middle Eastern twist, you know. But yeah.
No, my absolutely, my son has developed my love for Christmas. So.
No, don't get me wrong. I love Christmas, and then like we try to just the thing though that I tell a lot of people, that I talk to a lot of people about, is like it becomes like this affair of, you know, budgeting and how much money you're going to spend. And then like growing up the way I grew up, it's the polar opposite of how my kids are growing up now. And now it's to the point where they're like you want a $3,000 gaming console, or you want like, no. But yeah, there's a delicate balance between the Christmas spirit, and then it's like, okay, what are we going to get for Christmas this year? And I get it.
The Grinch had a point.
What was his point?
Listen, the Grinch doesn't actually hate Christmas. He just hates people.
That's what I'm saying, dude.
And the whole like, everything's on sale for the next 30 seconds. Yeah. In the Grinch movie, and it's just like it's about material things, and it shouldn't be. It's not the point of Christmas, in my opinion. So
yeah. Well, I'm trying to I think I had this conversation or brought it up with Erica, but like I have gotten less and less religious the older I get, which of course that was kind of the way my family treated me. They'd be in church Sunday, Wednesday, Tuesday, and then they'd turn around and treat you like just dirt. And you're like, wait a minute, I thought you were. But I feel like it's one of those things where I'm like, man, this is the birthday of Christ. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But then I gotta have
celebrating that. We're not celebrating your new Xbox 5000.
I gotta have a pastor on here so we can talk about it. Like, it's such a fascinating concept to me, religion, and I don't know. I've become a skeptic the older I've gotten.
You shouldn't be.
I know. I'm scared to die.
Well, you know what? So, you know what? That's interesting you say that. I think that is something that has been... I actually follow a hospice nurse on Instagram. And she talks about normalizing death. And in my field, I'm kind of like, I deal with it every single day. Whether it's in the morning when I'm signing out death certificates, or I'm typing up reports, or I'm actually on a scene. I deal with death constantly. And people have always asked me, how do you cope with it? And I'm just like, I exercise a lot. I get beat up at jiu-jitsu by you quite a bit.
Oh, so, whatever.
I have healthy outlets. And some people, it's just become such a macabre topic. And people want to avoid it.
Well, it's just like Erica was saying, like she's talking about, you're 36, 35?
39.
Are you?
Mm-hmm.
I'm frozen in time, dude. I feel like it's one of those things where someone around our age, they go to work, they don't expect. That's kind of the thing. You don't expect to die yet. I don't expect to die yet, and it's just like she's like, no, they get in an accident that morning or something happens, and they're on the table with me.
Yeah, and that's what
the veil is just. It's thin between.
Yes, it is.
Between life and death.
Yep, you're here 1 second, gone the next. And that's what I think people need to cherish each other more. I think people need to get past the whole, whether you have... my wife and I try to never go to bed mad at each other. I never try to leave for work. If we have issues, we talk about it, because you never know when your number's getting punched.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't want her to live like that. If I was working a 1050 fatality and I got smoked by a Peterbilt doing mock Jesus up 65,
Yeah, there's not going to be no phone calls later.
No, I'm sorry's after that.
Well, I kind of, to talk about what you just mentioned, like, I've got a psychologist coming on.
Right on.
And got some good ideas of discussions with him, but I think a lot of the stuff that we have, the problems we have in society, we're on our cell phone too much.
Yep.
And I'm guilty of that. I mean, I'll sit through a commercial I was watching. I don't know why one day. I was just sitting there and I had Netflix was off. Mm-hmm. And then if the Roku's not on, like the regular cable's playing.
Right.
And I was watching, I can't remember, it was a movie or something, and the commercial came on. It almost killed me.
Did you grab your phone and start scrolling?
I was just sitting there. I was like, and it's just like, and you don't even realize you have it in your hand.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there and I'm just scrolling, and if it's Facebook, it's like I don't care what these people are doing. I don't even like these people.
Right. You're just scrolling.
I haven't seen them in 18 years.
Right.
Since high school.
Isn't it weird?
It's terrible, man.
It's just like, my kids aren't allowed. They have they're only allowed certain apps on their iPads, and they're allowed their iPads on the weekends for a certain amount of time. And I've noticed, and that's why we did it on the weekend. We switched to that because they're on their iPads, and their attitude is just totally different. Like they get cranky if they don't have. I swear, it's like a fix if they don't have it. And so we basically detoxed them off of technology, and they only get it on the weekends now. And it's in small doses on the weekends because the attitude. Well, I'm just like.
Yeah, they'll be depressed and have anxiety and all kinds of issues. I mean, that's one of the things. Like, So I guess the point of that is to kind of tell people, hey, while you're still alive, these are the things you should and shouldn't be doing. Because, death comes knocking.
It does.
And then you get called.
And then I get called. Yep. I get paged. I get that page. I get that text message, and it's always one of those, I'm just like,
Well, and I'm trying to think if you had told me something about, you work with a hospital too, right?
I do. I work with a hospital quite a bit. So if someone dies in the ICU within a certain time frame, they have to call me. And fortunately, during COVID, I had the foresight with my office manager sit down with them and say, this is not if it's a death resulting or related to COVID, whether it's pneumonia or respiratory failure or whatever that's, if the cause of death is something as related to COVID and they die in the care of a doctor, that is not falling in my purview. So don't call me for them.
Yeah.
Otherwise, my phone would have been blowing up nonstop 2019. And so...
Oh, yeah.
It would have been nonstop. And so I said, unless there's something suspicious about it, call me. If you have questions, call me. And so I still get calls. Some nights, not a call. Other nights, I'll get 3 and 4 calls from the ICU, one after another, and of someone that's passed away in the ICU. And how we keep them in 3 different. I have a full case spreadsheet, and then I have a courtesy call. Then I have consults. Basically, everything from the ICU falls under consults. Basically, a phone consultation. Be like, hey, we're notifying you that this person has passed away. Here's what they're admitted for. Here's their medical history. Doctor called TOD this time. Does this fall under your purview? Nope, I'm declining as a coroner's case. I'm not going to follow it. Take him down to the morgue whenever you're ready. Don't forget to fill out your burial transit permit. So,
you gotta do the paperwork.
And that's something that we have done is we've really streamlined the paperwork process. All my deputies have tablets, Windows Surface Pros, and they can do everything from that tablet. Everything from audio recordings to video, upload it all to our coroner case management system, and then it's all digitally stored through an encrypted web-based platform. So, and then also through the county's servers as well. So we keep files on there as well. And that's what my office manager's for, and God love him. He calls me the body snatcher. I call him the guy who deals with the attorneys. So
they are definitely equally important. The last thing I was gonna, because you brought it up, we were asking. I was asking you before we started recording about paranormal experiences that you've had since it's creepy time of the year. But you were saying something about somebody did a crunch, one last sit up, huh?
Yeah, doing an ab mat sit up. So basically, it was someone who had basically died in a car fire.
Okay.
So, and they're on the cold table, on this big stainless steel table in the morgue, about 0 dark 30. I'm sitting at my desk in the morgue. And we use like a heavy PVC vinyl kind of body bag. And so, when they move, I don't want to say they crinkle, but you could obviously hear the plastic.
Yeah.
And so, right. So I'm sitting there in front of the paperwork. I'm facing away.
Oh, God, no.
From the body. So, and all of a sudden I hear like the plastic starting to crinkle. I'm like, I didn't hear the door open. I was like, security's not in here. And I heard it crinkle some more, and I'm like, WTF? And I turn around. I'd say maybe 30 degrees. The body had sat up.
Oh, shit.
So the muscles, due to the burns and the high heat, basically the body just kind of started to sit
30
up.
degrees, huh?
So like 30 degrees.
Yeah.
It was like, it takes a lot of muscle strength to hold that kind of pose, but I was just like, it was one of those moments I'm like, it's the zombie apocalypse. Like,
bro, I would have been out of that room. This is how I'm going to go. All 225 pounds of me would have been.
It was one of those experiences where I didn't have all the lights on in the morgue, so I just had my desk lamp on, and I had like the spotlight on because I was going to try and draw some blood for toxicology.
Oh my God.
And so I was in there, and of course it just added to the eeriness of it. And I was like, nope.
There's ambience, the ambiance in there.
Today, Satan. And I just wheeled him in a cooler. And I said, I'll deal with this later when the sun's out.
Gotta bring a priest in there with
right?
you. Yeah, I gotta get a priest. There's a guy that he's been on some big podcasts, but he's a Vatican trained exorcist.
I want to hear about that. I will 100% tune into that.
Vincent, Father Vincent. His last name is Vincent. But yeah, he's down in like Brookfield, Indiana now. He was with the Indianapolis Archdiocese.
Okay.
So I sent him an email. He didn't respond, but I'm gonna get a hold of him.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna get a hold of him.
I will definitely.
He is not gonna like this room.
No.
I love this room.
I love it. I like it.
It is dark. I mean, you know, it's kind of a weird. Like I said, I didn't know. I love black and red, and
it's got a little red rum.
I didn't know.
Kind of thing going on here.
Well, this is actually red and then black with a sea foam or sea sponge roller, and then these two walls over here are black as the base and then red over top. So if you look at the corner, you can see the it's inverted kind of, but yeah, it's a nifty little. I didn't want any kind of like, I don't know, generic looking room, but this is almost like, yeah, if we ever sold this place, probably have to repaint it.
Somebody might think there was some, you know.
Oh, you put a pentagram on the wall, dude. That completes the look.
Yep. Oh yeah, 100%.
Oh well, listen, man. I don't think I've got anything else for you. I know we've been planning to do this for a while, or we threw around the idea, but yeah, that was. I think we've been going for about it's 3:30, so
a minute.
A little bit, yeah.
I've enjoyed it. I've always when you told me you're doing this, I was like, dude, I want to get on there.
Well, and
I've never been on a podcast.
People have got that macabre sense of the curiosity, and a coroner, like I said, Derica, you know, she was like, yeah, I've had some experiences in the funeral home with, well, I worked with her, and I don't mind dealing with the body. I've been around them, I've seen it, but listen. There was one time we had 2 funerals going at once.
Okay.
And I knew the one person was the decedent was in there having their service. Well, her or somebody had asked me to go into somewhere else and get something for the funeral. And I go in this room is pitch black. And it's another casket room, you know, so they've got the chairs all lined up for the viewing and stuff. And I go in there and I flick this lamp on, and I'm at the head of this casket, and there's whoever, I mean, it was going to be a service right after this one. They were
back to back.
Yeah, the family, because there's a sign with arrows, you know, Mrs. Thomas is over here and Mr. Burns is over there.
Right.
And I come in and pop the lamp on, and I'm like 2.5 feet away from Mr. I was like, oh God. Didn't like it one bit.
No, I've never had like the, I guess you'd say the ghostly experience, if you will. Born and raised Lutheran, so I call it Catholic light. We born and raised that way, and like everybody's always asked, like, how do you deal with all the dead babies? And I'm like, well, what?
Yeah, that would be rough.
What made that individual a human in my eyes no longer resides inside that shell.
Gotcha.
And so it
that's a good explanation.
It sounds crass to some people, but I look at it as that is no longer a human. That is evidence.
Yeah.
And it's my job now to speak for people who can no longer speak for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I think
that's
it's good.
how. I think that's been my biggest method of coping.
It sounds healthy too. It doesn't sound like you know how to balance between, hey, this is the job I have to do, and this is, yeah, I understand where they're coming from, but
yeah,
and it's not them doing it; it's you doing it,
right?
So, however you see fit to cope with it. I mean, I'm not saying just do whatever, but that is a good explanation, because you are kind of you're the advocate for these people.
Yeah.
So
and I take that, I take it seriously, and I know we have in our respective professions, we have gallows humor, dark humor.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's a coping mechanism. And I know it's a coping mechanism. It's not always the healthiest of coping mechanisms, but sometimes I think it's there.
I look at it as like it's almost like a vapor barrier. Like there's going to be small particles that still can seep in and permeate that sheet you've got up or whatever. But for the most part, it's adopting a mindset of, and I mean, I appreciate the fact like you're also doing something that, I mean, most, and I say like upper 90% of the population couldn't do, because it's tedious, man. It's a lot.
It is. It's very in depth, and it's no longer the old days of, because I'm the coroner, I said so.
No,
like, this is why that. No, you have to have science.
Well, you can arrest the sheriff too.
I can.
I was going to ask you that. I forgot about that.
Never had the opportunity. So,
dude, there was a sheriff in Indiana that got like,
yeah.
Oh, where was that at? Was it Clark County or
somewhere? I know exactly what.
Bro, he was buying planes and Rolexes and spent like $11,000 at Hooters. Don't know how you do that, but it was a good time for him
for a minute.
Yeah, and yeah, so. All right, man. Well, listen, that was everything I thought it was going to be like. That was amazing.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
This has been quite. I like it. This has quite the ambiance, and I enjoy it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm gonna hopefully. I've still got some sprucing up to do. I mean, just being new to this whole podcasting thing. Right. I remember I'm 33. I was I was watching YouTube in like 2007, and back in those days, YouTube was like
pretty new.
Well, the videos that people were putting up was just like random people just doing weird stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, you know what? You imagine if you would have had two guys with mics just talking about whatever.
Right.
How I'd be living off ad revenue in a yacht in international waters.
Oh, yeah.
And now I'm
a super yacht, no less.
No, and now it's like, it's just so saturated. But I tell people, I'm like, you gotta, if it's something that you think you'd be good at or something you'd enjoy doing, fuck it.
Right.
Why not? Like, what do you got to lose?
Exactly.
I've had family members like, oh, well, everybody's got a podcast. And I said, well,
maybe true, but you don't know if you're going to be successful at, right. You can't know if you're going to be successful till you try it.
Yeah. But it's just, I mean, your first few, your first few times, and nothing against my guests, because the guests, it doesn't fall on them. Every guest that I've had has been phenomenal. It's just like, it's my job to bring that all together kind of in an artistic way to make it appealing to kind of what we were talking about with the kids now, with the constant, their attention span is nil. So, well, are you glad you're going to be stepping down though in January? No, mixed feelings.
Mixed feelings.
How long have you been a coroner? 8 years?
I have been a medical legal death investigator since 2008 or 9. So, real quick, it's a core course, a group of courses you have to take and pass tests on. And then you have to do an externship. You have to write a case report for each of the 5 manners of death. And then it's graded by an outside agency. And then once that's done, then you're certified. So, been doing that since about 2008 or 2009. I can't remember exactly when, but I was part-time. I worked up in Marion County for a couple of years, maybe just a year, some change, and then worked with the Bartholomew County Coroner's Office for a couple different coroners. And then when the previous coroner before me decided to hang it up, I decided to run. So
slid your way in there.
I did.
Do it for a while.
Campaigned my way in there.
God.
So
I forgot to ask you this. You were on Dirty Jobs with old Mike Rowe. What was that about?
That was a long time ago and probably about 60 pounds ago. It was with Mike, and he came up to Purdue, and we'd put a bunch of basically dead pigs in different decompositional situations, if you will. Had one in a dumpster, wrapped one up in a tarp, put one in a toter, and just laid one out in our research facility. And then he came out there and helped us collect maggots, and we took him back to our office / lab and showed him how to identify maggots and basically how to work backwards with the math.
What year was that? Like 2012?
2011, I believe.
Yeah, so damn, you have, man.
11.
It's almost 2025.
Dude, I know. It's scary how fast time goes by.
You're still young, though. When I think of a coroner, I think of like old Charlie. He fits the bill.
There you go. That's who you need to get on here. Make sure it's after January 1, would you?
He's going to get us both in trouble. Yeah, that's fine. He's like, what? How old is old Charlie? 70s?
70 years young.
70 on the nose.
Dude, I could not do it without him. I love him to death. He is like...
He's a tough man.
He is. He's been doing it since the 80s.
No shit.
Fairly certain. 80s or early 90s. So...
I did not know that.
He's phenomenal. He is. He's definitely a little bit old school.
Yeah, he is. But I tell you what, I can appreciate what he brings to the table because it's humorous, but it's also like he gets it done, man. He does.
He knows it. He knows the business inside and out, and he's compassionate when he needs to be, and he's very capable. So
yeah, he is.
I'm gonna convince him to hang around a little bit longer.
Yeah, I'm sure he wouldn't mind. I mean, you slow down, you go down,
right?
So I don't think he'd have a problem with that.
An object in motion stays in motion.
Sir Isaac Newton.
That's what they say.
Yeah, I've been reading a lot about Einstein's theory of relativity because I'm like, man, how does this all tie together?
Now we're going off in the weeds.
Oh, listen. Yeah, I read it and I was like, I cannot understand this. I can't. And he wrote this. This is in like 1905. He was doing this stuff. This isn't like today and age, with software and technology. But anyways, yeah, I'm getting off topic, man. So thank you guys. Subscribe, watch it, enjoy it, all the above.
Give it a thumbs up.
Is that what they say?
I think so. Know what you do on YouTube?
I just think it's played out, man. It was like, subscribe. Like, if you're going to, you're going to.
I appreciate
that.
But
I appreciate it if they do it too. So
I'm going to. I'm going to do it like 500 times. I'm going to run on the loop.
500 different accounts.
You're right. Yeah.
Oh, that was good, man. That was awesome. That was very good.
Thank you, sir.